Hello and welcome back to the NUFC Opinion Blog for another edition of the Thursday Team Talk podcast. Once again, joined by Ben Arkless, this time for episode 3. Only 2 games to discuss this week, but we'll start with Brighton versus Newcastle. So Ben, looking at that game, probably our biggest game of the season so far. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we've said this every week, haven't we? It's going to be the biggest game, and obviously there's so many important fixtures at the minute. Brighton going off a good win last time against Southampton.
Very good for them.
Certainly they'll be confident, I would have thought. And if they win, it's I think they're 5 points ahead of us.
Yeah.
And that's the worrying thing for me, because I think if it's just us and Fulham in a relegation fight, I'll be honest, I don't really fancy Wiz.
Neither do I.
I think in the form Fulham are in, it's
I mean, Fulham were beaten heavily by Man City the other night, but I still think they've got it in them.
Definitely, I think the form they've showed, obviously the Man City result wasn't the best, but if you look over sort of the last 10 games or so, their form record's a lot better than what ours is. So that's a worrying thing. But obviously back to our match, we did okay against Villa. I think we would have liked to take the 3 points. We had a few chances which we didn't put away. The Murphy one most notably.
Especially,
But I said before the game I would have taken a point against Villa. So I'm not too disheartened with a point, but at the same time we could have had more and put us in a better place going forward in Saturday's game.
Very much so. I mean, if we look at that Villa game, we probably were unlucky not to get the 3 points considering Murphy's missed chance. And let's be honest, Aston Villa, they're not the team that they are with Jack Grealish. But at the same time as well, their goal was the flukiest thing I've seen.
It was so frustrating. Sometimes luck just doesn't go your way, does it? And you need a little bit of luck when you're down at the bottom, I would say. And when goals like that go in, you just think, maybe it's not our season. But
don't say that.
Well,
oh no.
To be honest, every sort of the longer it goes on like this, the more worried I'm getting, to be honest. I think as well, to score in the last minute like we did, it was good to see. Pretty much the last kick of the match. At least we got something from it. But as I say, I think Brighton will be in a happier place than us going into the match on Saturday.
Certainly, yes. Which means that this game, if Steve Bruce doesn't think that because he said that he's downplayed Villa and West Brom as not must wins, and we haven't won either of them. Surely, if to him this is not a must win, then I don't know what will be.
I think there's been a number of occasions in the past few weeks where we haven't really looked like we want to stay up. Brighton going out and getting a result last weekend, Fulham as well, which we'll obviously come on to in a moment or two. In the first sort of 15-20 minutes against Man City, I thought they did look quite good. They took the game to Man City.
They had a good first half, I think, but it's Man City.
And Man City do have the quality, but I think they look like they want to kind of go out and get the results, whereas sometimes we're happy to sit back and like West Brom the other week, which we'd spoken about. Where we seem to be quite happy to sit for a draw, which isn't the mentality we should be having at the moment.
That's the thing. I just can't understand the mentality of Steve Bruce. If he takes a look at that Premier League table right now and he seriously thinks that he's quietly confident that just the way things are going, we're going to get out of it, then
it's a little bit of a worry. Obviously, we'll come back to this. There's far too much saying Steve Bruce maybe isn't the right man to take us forward. And against Villa, we had one moments, but once again, I'm not saying the performances should be exciting. We're looking for results, but once again, I thought the first half was boring to watch again.
Oh, it was terrible.
And the same against West Brom, it just doesn't look like we have the interest really, and that's a bit concerning for me.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you on that one. It's I mean, performance. Yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as you get some sort of a result from the game. But when it's a performance like we had at West Brom, you just don't look like getting any sort of result from the game, no matter what we do. I mean, which is just the opposite, because then you look at Brighton, who, albeit yes, don't score much, and that has cost them a lot this season. But if we're going off performance, then you'd think that they're the most likely to get the
Indeed, I mean,
3 points.
obviously we're talking about scoring goals, but if I'm not mistaken, the best result in the Prem this season for Brighton was their win against us at the start of the year,
and they absolutely tore us apart on that day.
And you know, if they set up the same and we set up the same, then
and let's be honest, we had pretty much a full strength squad that day as well.
Exactly, and obviously, you know, as far as I'm aware, Wilson, St. Maximin, and Almiron aren't quite ready to come
There's
back.
There's been rumours that Almiron might be ready, from what I've heard. But regardless, though, it's, you know.
But then you think, you know, I couldn't see at this stage getting a full 90 minutes out of Almiron, even if he does come back. I don't think he'd play the full 90 straight away. So
very true.
Of course, if you came off the bench, he could be a bit of an impact player.
Definitely.
But we still need to be in the game for him to come off the bench.
Exactly. There's no point in just doing an Andy Carroll and coming off for 30 seconds at the end of the game.
No.
That was ridiculous. But looking into like how I think Newcastle should approach this game, I think Jacob Murphy has to start. I think his impact in the 15-20 minutes that he played against Aston Villa was probably more impactful than any other player had already had during the previous 70 or so minutes.
I think for me, he was my man of the match for Newcastle.
Yes, likewise.
Although the team performance wasn't the best, he came on and was a bright spark. You know, the little run he went on before before he hit the bar, that was impressive. You know,
if he had put that chance away,
that could have been the 3 points secured.
Exactly, but as I said, he would have definitely been man of the match for that regard.
But even so, it was a fantastic ball he put in for Lascelles.
Completely.
You know, it was right in a dangerous place, and we've said on a few occasions, Murphy can put a ball in the box.
He can, that's the thing.
When he gets the chance.
And that's why I think you have him and you start also Andy Carroll, because if Murphy can put a ball in and Andy Carroll can get on the end of it, which he can.
You know, if Murphy can put balls in like he did for the Lascelles chance.
I agree with you, Ben. I completely agree with you on that.
Plenty to attack, but for someone like Joe Linton, he's not. Well, for starters, he doesn't really get himself into the positions that you know you want him to win the headers. But you know, Andy Carroll will be in the box. He'll be there to win the headers if they come in and if the crosses come in, and you know, hopefully we can use that to our advantage.
Yeah, no, spot on. And if we look at Brighton, I mean, obviously we'll have a preview coming very soon on the channel before the match with a good friend of both of us, which you'll all see at some point soon, who's a very good Brighton supporter. As I say, they don't score many goals, but Graham Potter has them playing some very attractive football.
Indeed. And you know, the worry there is that you feel on a number of occasions, especially in full-back with Lewis and Kraft, players have gone past with too easy. I feel like we're full-back sometimes are very, you know, stand still.
I'd like to think that Manquillo would start this game. I think he's fit enough now. He's been on the bench for 2 weeks in a row, so you'd think he'd be fit enough to come back in.
But of course, if Brighton are capable of playing good football, then the chances are they're going to be able to pass it around us. And you know, last time we played them, Lamptey down the right-hand side when he played, you know,
I mean,
against
he
Lewis,
was fantastic.
Exactly, and against Lewis just looked lost, I thought, and that's the worry of fullback. I think is the main areas of weakness for us.
No, I agree with you on that as well. Brighton, I mean, they have Danny Welbeck, who's probably past his best these days. Neil Maupay, who gets the odd goal. I'm sure Charlie, our friend, will let us know a bit more into what we should look out for in the preview, but I just think it's a massive game, and if we don't get anything from it, I'm fearing the worst.
Yeah, and then
we look at it,
especially with the longer this goes on, the more pressure we're under. You know, the less likely we're going to be able to play with football. Like Brighton, you know, off the win, they might kind of be a bit more open and look to play their style of football rather than being a bit cagey. Of course, having that little bit of a buffer, but I can see from us definitely it might be quite a cagey performance, certainly in the first half. You know, I think
it'll be quite nervy
level.
Both accounts, yeah.
And so I wouldn't expect to see a fantastic game of football once again. for the neutrals, but the result's the main thing. And if we can get that, that'll put us in a much better position, especially if Fulham don't get the 3 points or anything against Leeds on Friday. So.
Which is what we'll come on to now, which is the Friday night game. 24 hours exactly before we take on Brighton. Fulham take on Leeds. Now, as we say, Fulham were beaten by Manchester City on their own backyard the weekend just gone. But as we also mentioned, they had an all right first half in that game, and that's against the champions-elect at the moment. Leeds are a side who blow hot and cold. They're either brilliant or terrible.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if I was a Leeds fan, I would have been happy with the point against Chelsea. It was was quite an open game. It was a good game to watch.
Any of those could have won that game, to be honest.
Certainly, but I think from a Leeds perspective, a result, against Chelsea is something that they would have taken. But before that, the form wasn't too good. They've had quite a few losses. West Ham that are in the last 3, if I'm not mistaken. So going into this game, as you say, it's so hard to predict with Leeds. You don't know if it's going to be a team that comes out and plays or a team that just get battered. And I think with Fulham being on good form as well,
I wouldn't be. I think a draw could end up being the result on that one.
I could see that happening. But even so, if Fulham draw and we manage to get the win, it's 4 points. 4 points the gap.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead of Brighton again as well. So
exactly.
Regardless of regardless of the Fulham Leeds game, we just need to beat Brighton. That's just the long and short of it all. We just need to beat Brighton.
As we sort of mentioned before, that they did take the game to Man City in the first half, I think, and if they do the same, the worry I have, well, not from, for us it would be good, but if Fulham go out and play, Leeds can hit you on the break really well. They can exploit the space. So if Fulham come out too much, I think that's maybe something
plays
that
into Leeds' hands a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's all to be seen. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, credit to Scott Parker. He's had Fulham playing some really good football of late. But
he has, yeah.
Hopefully, the battering they had against Man City might have knocked the stuffing out of their momentum a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You'd like to think so.
Going into that game, I didn't really say anything other than a Man City result, although it took a while for them to kick into gear, Man City.
Once they did, Fulham were terrible against. Let's be honest, Man City were in cruise control.
But I don't think City, I don't think Fulham would have expected to get anything out of the game. So,
yeah.
I don't think they would have been too disheartened in a sense. But at the same time, a 3-0 defeat, is still a 3-0 defeat. It's not really what you want to be reading after the match from a Fulham perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one, Ben. I think, as I say, we only had 2 matches to sort of summarize for today's episode, so there's not really much else to say that other than we don't want a Fulham result and we do need a Newcastle result.
Yeah, I'd say, if we can just get that result, it'll be so much nicer going into, the international break, a little bit of weight off our shoulders, and I feel you want to go into the international break with a result. It gives you that bit of confidence, especially when we'll come back. Hopefully afterwards we'll have St. Maximin, Almiron, and Wilson back in the side. Hopefully we can use to kick on if we can pick something up against Brighton. If I were to pick a score, being optimistic, I'd say maybe it's a 1-0 Newcastle, but being realistic, I'll be honest,
I can see us getting beaten. I certainly can see us getting.
I feel like a draw maybe is the most realistic for me. But if Brighton turn up and play the good football, then curtains. But
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it all just depends on how Steve Bruce is he going to go there like he did against West Brom and go there and try and not lose.
Yeah,
or is he going to go there and try and actually win the game?
Exactly. How we set up is something which I can never be sure of, to be honest. It looks different one week into the next. You think sometimes we'll look really good, sometimes we'll just look like we want to sit back. So, it's a lottery how we're going to play, I think.
Yeah. Spot on with you there, Ben. That brings to the end a bit of a shorter Thursday Team Talk podcast episode because, well, as we mentioned, there's only been 2 matches to preview, and the NUFC and the EPL podcast will be at the end of this week as well because, of course, there's no more games in March, the international break coming, and therefore there won't be this Team Talk next week because there's no Newcastle game to preview or no other Premier League games to preview. So this will be back in a couple of weeks' time. But the content will still be coming in the meantime from the channel, so please do keep looking out for that. We've still got some very good things to come, despite the fact that we'll be a week or 2 without Premier League football. So Ben, thank you very much for joining me once again.
Thank you.
And that just leaves me to say thank you all very much for watching, and how are the lads?